So, this is a topic that I was meaning to talk about for quite a while, but I felt like I was too uneducated to do it, and that is funny considering that I actually do have a bachelor's in computer and video games of all things. It is a legitimate course. It's considered to be STEM because it includes learning how to program and also kind of learning how to do art on the side, but it kind of allows you to specialize. And I took the specialization in programming. But if anyone could answer the question of what is a role playing game, you would think it would be a person that went and got a degree in video games. But no, because the whole aspect of role playing games is really convoluted. And I'm gonna try and explain that to you as we go along. Cat, please don't scratch yourself in the mirror. That's not gonna help anybody. But in order to show you what I mean, this is a list of all role-playing games that have released in years 2012 to 2013. This is a Wikipedia list, which means it's not super accurate, but if we go down to The Walking Dead Season 1, that is considered to be a role-playing game. It's because role-playing games have such a loose definition that a lot of things can fit into being a role-playing game. So what do you need officially as a definition to be a role-playing game? A role-playing game, a role-playing video game, role-playing game, or computer role-playing game as a video game genre where the player controls the actions of a character or several party members that will undergo some form of character development by the way of recording statistics. And by this, I think they mean you increase in stats, your gear increases in gear, like in level, gear increases in gear, like, you know what I mean. You get better gear or you get better stats, aka something on the statistical side of your character changes. Also, they are usually immersed in some well-defined world. Usually, because sometimes they're not. That's it. Meet these, like, 2 or 3 conditions. You're controlling a character or characters. They undergo some form of character development that is expressed through in-game statistical number upping sort of thing, like increasing in level, increasing in gear, or increasing in the amount of spells that you can do, aka some sort of number go up. And if you want to, if you really, really want to work on your role-playing game, you can also immerse it in some sort of immersive world. But you don't have to. That's what we're working with. And if you're gonna look at role-playing games through the decades, what defines a role-playing game, I would say, changes time and time again. If we go to the list, the very first role-playing game to ever be constructed is D&D, which is D&D for a computer. So Dungeons and Dragons, but not the tabletop kind, the computer kind. And I think at this point, if anyone was to class this game themselves, we would probably class it as a dungeon crawler. There are items that you need to get, there are dungeons that you need to visit in order to get those items. The variety of how you approach this doesn't need to be linear, so you can visit dungeon A and then dungeon C, and then when you get all the items, you can get to the end. And I believe this is the first video game to feature a boss fight or something along those lines. D&D is notable for being the first interactive game to feature what would later be referred to as bosses. So there you go, you crawl through your dungeons, you collect your items, you get to the last boss, you finish the game. It's not open world, it's not huge sprawling world, the world doesn't even need to be defined all that much. You crawl through dungeons, so primarily for me this sounds like a dungeon crawler, but no, it's a role-playing game. And I have a feeling that if this is when you first got introduced to role-playing games on a computer in 1975, when the very first one of them was released, your version of what is a role-playing game would probably be closer to what, for me, is a dungeon crawler, but not necessarily a role-playing game. The list for the 1970s to 1980s for what is a role-playing game is kind of wild, because we also have Beneath the Apple Manor, which can kind of be described as a roguelike. Not a role-playing game, but a roguelike. And it is another dungeon crawler. And it predates the earliest roguelikes. Hence, it didn't know how to define itself. So it was defined as a role-playing game. And these days, we would be like, that's a roguelike. But it's also on the list of role-playing games. And considering how vague the definition of a role-playing game is, a lot of games can fall into the list of role-playing games. So, my theory is that what we consider colloquially to be role-playing games kind of changes year to year to a point where we would probably exclude what is the first role-playing games from being a role-playing game because it doesn't quite fit our current definition of what is a role-playing game. And as the genre progresses, especially if people go into more of a horizontal sort of progression, we may lose the statistical impact of leveling up your character, and you will probably find some role-playing games that don't feature that one agreed point that a role-playing game should, which is your character growth occurs on numerical statistics inside your character page. And these games will probably still manage to get themselves classed as a role-playing game. And that definition will probably become even more vague. So instead of going by definitions that are here, I'm gonna make my own list. I hope you don't mind, as to what is a role-playing game for me. So at first, we're gonna start with the regular starting points that Wikipedia provides for us. By the way, Wikipedia is not the end-all be-all. It is a source that anyone can change. However, it is not a bad starting point, and when you enter a topic such as what is a role-playing game, trust me, there is a lot of contention around it, so yeah, no matter where you go for the definition, you're gonna find some very perplexing answers. In fact, defining role-playing game by this point is an art and not a science, but here is a list as to what makes a role-playing game for me. It has to have a character or characters. This can be your self-created character or characters, or this could be a character or characters that you take control of. For me, it doesn't matter. For some other people, it does. I won't exclude games like The Witcher from being a role-playing game because you are role-playing a singular character. The same way that I wouldn't exclude Deus Ex from being a role-playing game, though some people would probably disagree that it is a role-playing game. I would say that it is a role-playing game. I'm pretty sure that your gear changes over time and becomes better therefore. But some people would disagree. So, I am not excluding those games. As such, for me, it doesn't matter if I get to create my character or not. Technically, if we go to 1975's roots and the very first role playing game in existence, we should be taking the necessity of creating your own character as part of what a role playing game is. However, we're not defining it on a singular game from 1975. We're defining from broader aspects of what has fallen into the genre in the past 45-ish years. Therefore, for me, it doesn't matter if I create that character or not, but we have to have a character or characters that we control. 2, because definition is as lax as it is, let us include the necessity to upgrade your character in some way, be it gear or stats, throughout the game. I'm keeping this as a requirement because the genre is already so watered down that honestly, a lot of things that don't belong as a role-playing game can be thrown into the role-playing game genre. Like, for example, I would argue that The Walking Dead does not classify as a role-playing game, and if we want to stare at a nicer picture, that point-and-click games do not classify as role-playing games because we don't put in stats into our character, we don't level our character, and our character never improves gear-wise. Therefore, that point 2, I am keeping. I am keeping it for now, but I guarantee you, at some point, some game will drop it, and we're gonna be even more confused about what a role-playing game is. 3rd point, for me, you have to have a story. From beginning to an end. This probably excludes some very early role-playing games that can also be seen as roguelikes or dungeon crawlers. I don't care. I'm making a personal list. It's my personal list. So, story is a must. You can't class like a simulation game where you're building a city as a role-playing game because it doesn't have a story for you to play a role in. It has to have that. A sandbox game can also not classify itself as a role-playing game because for me, there has to be a storyline with like beginning, middle, and end. Now, point 4. Your game has to have choices in some way, shape, or form. I was gonna put this point as role-playing games tend to be big. So if you think about adventure games, they tend to be very flat and very straightforward. From A to B to C to D. Finish level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and then you're done. Role-playing games tend to have... Some of them will have branching pathways, where there's more than one way to complete the story. There's choices to choose there. Therefore, there is a role to play in your role-playing game. It's not just monkey say go and you go do. That's not really role-playing for me because there isn't a role for me to play. And this can also express itself in having a variety of side quests or roles to pick and choose inside the role-playing world. So, for example, if we take Bethesda's games like Elder Scrolls series, especially Oblivion and Skyrim, you can't really change or branch the main story. But there is the Mages Guild, there's the Thieves Guild, there's the Assassins Guild, there is the Fighters Guild. You can go and adopt a aspect of your character. Let's call it that way. You can choose to make your character into something or someone, so you can make them an archmage, you can make them the head assassin, and those are obviously very different things. Therefore, there is choice. There is a way for you to role play your character in the role playing game. I think that that is quite important, but that is already not on that list. Therefore, officially, you don't need it. But I say that if I'm seeing a game that is entirely linear with one storyline that I cannot make any kind of choice in, for me as a current, I hate that word, but modern gamer, I can't, with good conscience, call your game a role playing game, even though the official definition disagrees with me. But this is a personal list, so that is fine. Now, this point, this choice and everything, I want to lead into like an optional point 5. And this is, I think some people will really disagree with it because games are already kind of shifting away from it and I don't quite like it. I want your game to offer distinct playstyles that I can adopt, and I have to make a choice. As in, I don't want to be an expert in everything. In the olden days, we used to call these things classes. But technically, with newer games, like Bethesda's games come into mind, oftentimes all of the skill trees are available to you from the get-go, and technically you can max every single skill tree. I don't particularly want that to be a thing. And not all games that I consider to be role-playing games will force you into something more akin of a class, but even in The Witcher, you have like a magical skill tree, you have a skill tree for fighting with swords, or you can kind of do both, but you won't ever get enough XP to max out all 3 of them. For me, that making a choice in the kind of way that you're approaching the game, as in making a choice in the kind of class that you're gonna be playing, is kind of essential for me in a role-playing game, as once again, it kind of feeds into that playing a role thing. But I feel like that point is already coming under a lot of contention because not every person will agree with it, and it's not in the definition. So we're already galloping in the fields that is like far away from where the topic was meant to be. Hey, my arm disappears. Sorry about that. So I think it is okay for me to express my personal opinion in this very personal list as to what makes a role-playing game a role-playing game for me. But I know that that's not gonna be the same for everybody. And honestly, I think that that is it. At the base points, you have to control a characters, so you can't just be third person god that controls a city, for example. That's not a role-playing game. My cat is coughing. I am very sorry if you can hear that. 2 is you have to be able to increase your stats or your gear somehow, some way, some shape, and some form. 3, a story is a must. That is entirely a me point. That is not like an official point, which is once again why officially this thing is so broad and incomprehensible. So I will exclude some dungeon crawlers and some roguelikes from being a role playing game because for me, you have to have a story for me to role play in. For your game has to have choices in some way, shape, or form or capacity, by which I mean that maybe you have branching ways of approaching the storyline of the game, but if you don't, then maybe you're providing extra side quests and extra side content for me to define my character inside the world that you have crafted in some way, shape, or form. This could be through my narrative decisions as to what kind of personality I am expressing, or this could be through me specifically choosing to play through specific side quests that grant me specific titles, gear, profinity with specific things, or similar stuff. You have to give me choice inside your storyline, is what I mean. If your storyline is entirely linear, A to B, and there is absolutely no branching points whatsoever, then I don't count your game as a role playing game, but that is a me thing. And the last point is that I shouldn't be able to be a master of everything. I should be needing to choose how I play through your game. By this, I want to say classes, but not every game that's a role playing game these days has classes. So I will just settle from not having enough experience points to level my character to make them a master of everything, aka you make me choose. Because when you make me choose, you give me more chances to replay your game and play a different role in it, and therefore it makes it a role playing game to me. So that is how I would break down a role playing game, and these are musts that are musts for me. But once again, we're talking about a genre so vague that the 3 extra points that I put on it technically are not there, and technically a lot of more games are considered a role-playing game than what I consider to be a role-playing game. And then there are people that will insist that extra points should be added to the points that I have already made as to what a role-playing game is to me. Once again, this is just a hole that keeps on digging. It's a can of worms, and when you open it, you find a lot more worms than you expected. It's a very broad genre that's defined very loosely, and as such, people make their own personal definitions for what it is, and people's personal definitions for what it is don't tend to always agree with the broad definition of what the genre should be, and therefore what kind of games fall under it. In my opinion, we would do a bit better if this genre was defined a bit less loosely. If it kind of narrowed down as to what is and isn't a role playing game. We have other tags that we can put on games that fall outside of the category of role playing game. For example, an adventure game is a thing that exists. We can tag linear games with no real statistical character progression, or just the games that are really, really linear, that you go from point A to point B and do nothing else with a predefined playstyle. We can tag these as adventure games. There's nothing wrong with tagging a game as an adventure game. Not everything needs to be a role playing game. We have more definitions than that. So that's my personal take on this can of worms. I'm sure that plenty of people would disagree because this is a can of worms. If you do disagree, please, by all means, tell me so in the comment section down below. And also tell me what is a must for you for a game to be a role-playing game. I am already disagreeing with Wikipedia's list as to what is and isn't role-playing games. So if you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. Let's have a disagreement together, I suppose. Let's be nice, but let's have personal opinions about this, because it's the only kind of opinion that this topic ever invites. A personal kind of opinion, because the whole definition of what it is way too loose for anyone to have anything but a personal opinion on it. So thank you for watching. I tend to talk about video games sometimes, quite often, in fact, like every week. I also like talking about tabletops. Currently, I'm focusing on Vampire the Masquerade, but tabletops are another passion of mine, and I sometimes make spirituality videos. I'm currently playing through quite a lot of retro games, just because there were quite a few games that I missed growing up, or for some of them, I probably haven't even existed yet. I am not that young, so I existed for a lot of video games that existed, but they were inaccessible to me at a time. I have grew up with a fairly low amount of games that I had access to. And I think that is the way that a lot of people's childhood goes. So I am revisiting the games that I had no access to when they were popular. I couldn't play them at a time, so I'm playing them now, and I'm really enjoying that. Thank you for watching this video. If you like the kind of content that I have just described, consider subscribing. I love getting subscribers. I love seeing that number go up. It's very satisfactory to me. It makes me feel like I am not talking alone into my camera, even though that's precisely what I'm doing. And also, thank you so much for my Patreon subscribers, supporters, people that give me money, because you guys allow me to continue play video games. I am not rich at all. Actually, I'm really poor, so it's my access into the gaming world, and without it, I would be a lot sadder. So thank you so much. I hope I'm gonna see you on my other videos, and toodaloo for now.